Did y'all really think we weren't going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel?
I support Jimmy Kimmel.
Someone's got to step up. Enough. We're not going to bow.
I think Jimmy Kimmel's terrible. You know what suspended him? His talent. You know what else? His rating.
In September 2025, Jimmy Kimmel's late night show became the eye of a storm that laid bare America's competing values on truth, free speech, and community responsibility. In this video, we'll break down why ABC pulled its marquee host and why after 5 days, he was put back on the air. We begin with the shooting. On the afternoon of September 10th, Charlie Kirk, age 31, founder of Turning Point USA, was taking audience questions when Tyler Robinson, 22, fired a single shot. Kirk died instantly. Within 48 hours, authorities unearthed a trove of evidence. Robinson's mother told investigators he had moved more to the left, pro-gay and trans rights oriented. Investigators found bullet casings engraved with anti-fascist slogans. One read, "Hey fascist, catch," while another quoted lyrics from Bella Ciao, an Italian anti-fascist anthem. Through Discord logs, Robinson confessed to about 20 friends. "It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this." Governor Spencer Cox, after reviewing these facts, publicly described Robinson as profoundly indoctrinated with leftist beliefs. Even the New York Times ran a detailed profile of Robinson's radicalization, noting a shift from moderate views to extreme leftist rhetoric. That entire record was spelled out live, publicly available online, and broadcasted on the news by September 15th, which is when the next part of the story takes place. On September 15th, 5 days after the assassination, Jimmy Kimmel walked onto his live stage and accused the MAGA gang of covering up the killer's true motives.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
All available evidence, family testimony, crime scene markings, Discord confessions, and statements from Utah's governor proved the shooter, Tyler Robinson, was motivated by left-wing beliefs, not Trumpism. Conservatives erupted in fury after Jimmy Kimmel's insinuation that Charlie Kirk's killer was somehow aligned with the MAGA movement. Prominent right-wing commentators accused Kimmel of exploiting a political assassination to smear millions of Americans, while grassroots activists flooded social media with demands for ABC to issue an official apology or take him off the air.
He's still attacking MAGA as working very hard to capitalize on the murder of Charlie Kirk. We want to capitalize. We're in mourning. We're not capitalizing on the death of Charlie. We're in mourning. You leftist losers are out there trying to blame us for his death, trying to disparage his legacy, and we're trying to correct you, and we're trying to correct the record, and for once we're fighting back.
Influential figures like governors and members of Congress framed the remark as not just irresponsible, but deeply offensive to the grieving family, warning that it trivialized Kirk's death by twisting facts into partisan deflection.
Jimmy Kimmel said something that was extremely insensitive and a flat-out lie about the President of the United States, and there was no excuse for it. There is no excuse for making a joke. I don't care if you're a comedian or who you are, to making a joke about an assassination.
What prompted a comedian who knows how to research his jokes to ignore clear reporting? Was it a desire for a viral moment, an editorial decision? We don't know. What we do know is by the next morning, regional affiliates were enraged. Major broadcast groups like Sinclair and Nexstar, together controlling more than 20% of ABC's local stations nationwide, announced they would preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live and replace it with local news programming. That afternoon, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr weighed in from a conservative podcast.
They have a license granted by us at the FCC, and that comes with it an obligation to operate in the public interest. And we can get into some ways that we've been trying to reinvigorate the public interest and some changes that we've seen. But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
Disney's stock sank by nearly $4 billion in one trading session as investors feared regulatory crackdowns and affiliate boycotts. Nexstar, operating ABC stations in over 20 markets, issued a statement explaining its decision to preempt Kimmel's show. Mr. Kimmel's comments do not reflect the values of the local communities we serve. Sinclair, which owns 38 ABC affiliates, echoed that stance, saying we cannot permit lies and misinformation to infiltrate our markets. Station owner Armstrong Williams of Urban One clarified, he didn't make a joke, he spread a blatant lie. Our viewers deserve accuracy and respect. Within hours, Dozens of stations went dark. This was not an order from ABC. It was a revolt from the ground up. Complaints flooded call centers. Advertisers called station managers. Community activists held local protests. These are broadcasters who must answer to the FCC's public interest standard, and local outrage became an immediate and powerful force. Advertisers paused buys. On September 17th, ABC announced an indefinite suspension of Jimmy Kimmel Live, citing concerns for staff safety and advertiser relationships.
Disney and the ABC network are taking Jimmy Kimmel Live off the air indefinitely. This follows a controversy over comments the late-night comedian made Monday night about Charlie Kirk's suspected killer and the MAGA movement and their reaction to the assassination.
Amid pressure from
sources reveal that CEO Bob Iger and entertainment co-chair Dana Walden held marathon meetings. They saw affiliate defiance multiplying, advertisers threatening to pull campaigns, and an FCC warning that could spiral into formal inquiries. In a stark business reality, they chose suspension to stabilize the situation, even though the purported government threat later proved to be a misunderstanding of FCC process. Hollywood and liberal elites were outraged because they saw Brendan Carr's comments as government intimidation and a direct threat to the First Amendment and free speech. Many believed Carr's warnings to Disney and ABC over Jimmy Kimmel's remarks crossed a dangerous line, using federal power to pressure broadcasters and silence criticism of President Trump. They viewed it as an attempt to chill political comedy and independent media, sparking widespread alarm among artists, unions, and free expression advocates.
I don't know if you saw the response that Brendan Carr, the chairman of the FCC, gave to Brian Stelter when Brian Stelter asked him for a reaction or response to ABC's pulling Kimmel off the air. We're putting it on the screen. It's a meme. It's from The Office, and that was the actual response by the chairman of the FCC.
John Oliver walked on the set of Last Week Tonight and abandoned his scheduled topics to dedicate 40 minutes to defending Kimmel.
What got Kimmel in trouble was a passing reference on Monday night. Now, at the time, there were still rumours flying around regarding the killer's motivations, including that he was on the far right, something that Kimmel alluded to.
That they made up and lied about. We knew from the get-go because they held a press conference and they released the information. We knew. At the bare minimum, law enforcement investigation had exposed that this man was likely left aligned and motivated. Liberals fabricated this. And if Jimmy Kimmel based his information off of the actual investigation and not the crackpot cult rumor mill, he wouldn't have claimed that a conservative Trump supporter murdered one of their greatest advocates.
Kimmel didn't denigrate Charlie Kirk or make light of his killing. The worst thing you could say is that he appears to have been wrong about the shooter's ideology, which, okay.
It doesn't mean that just because they say you're a fascist or Nazi or whatever, they're responsible for a murder. But you can at least acknowledge the motivating factors and say, let's make sure we espouse a message of nonviolence and condemn this. They didn't. They lied. And Jimmy Kimmel knew, because you will not convince me that with the hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever they spent on a stupid show, his writing team didn't just Google it. But by all means, if you want to make the argument that they get their news from random blue sky accounts who make things up, and that's the pretext and underlying information source for their show, okay, fine, I accept that too, I guess, but I'm not going to absolve them of their responsibility. I think he did it on purpose.
To recap, Kimmel made a joke on air where he suggested that the man who killed Charlie Kirk in that awful murder was a supporter of the MAGA movement. Now, that is not true. Kimmel was wrong on the facts, at least as he suggested them in the joke.
What joke?
Barack Obama shared New York Times editorials on social media, decrying unconstitutional government coercion. Over 400 celebrities, from Tom Hanks to Meryl Streep to Ben Stiller, signed an ACLU open letter demanding Kimmel's reinstatement, calling the suspension a dark moment for freedom of expression. Stiller's 3-word tweet, "This isn't right," went viral with millions of views. Mark Ruffalo threatened Disney boycotts, warning that protecting Kimmel was good for free speech and crucial for brand integrity. Hollywood's defenders argued that refusing to broadcast a nightly comedy show sets a dangerous precedent. If a comedian can be punished for satire or error, anyone critical of power could be next. Why did Kimmel's cancellation over this misstatement cause more fury than the murder itself? because America had to decide which martyr to elevate: a comedian silenced for 5 days, or a man who died for his ideas.
First of all, the collective anger over someone losing their job from the left was way more than someone who lost his life, first and foremost.
That's not true.
Yet this fierce defense was strikingly selective. When conservative voices faced consequences, Tucker Carlson's ouster from Fox News, academic firings over COVID skepticism, or complete platform bans for pro-Trump posts, Hollywood was mostly silent or even celebratory. Jimmy Kimmel himself celebrated Tucker Carlson's firing openly on his show.
Fox News has severed bow ties with Tucker Carlson. After all these years, they are parting ways, which means he was fired. I mean, that's really what parting ways means. Tucker couldn't be reached for comment. He's already on a plane to Moscow to meet with his manager. But what a shock. I mean, what an absolutely delightful shock this is. Now Tucker can spend more time at home tanning his testicles and touching himself to that sexy green M&M. Sadly, he's probably not done poisoning old people's brains. The question now is, where will he do it next? Will he go to OAN? Will he go to Newsmax? Will he crawl back up Satan's fiery beehole from whence he came? We don't know. One of the most despicable mother Tuckers ever to appear on American television.
When the Biden administration privately pressured Facebook and Twitter to remove COVID-19 content and the Hunter Biden laptop story, coverage was muted.
Trumpers are complaining bitterly that they're being silenced. In fact, they won't shut up about being silenced. On their 3 propaganda TV networks, on 1,000 conservative radio shows, all over the internet, they are screaming about being silenced. They won't be silent about being silenced.
In those instances, censorship was accountability, not tyranny.
It is outrageous. It's a page right out of Xi's playbook. This is just despicable, disgusting, and against democratic values. Trump and his allies seem to want to shut down speech that they don't like to hear. That is not what democracies do. That is what autocracies do. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with Kimmel or not. He has the right to free speech.
2.5 years earlier.
Last night, Fox News aired one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen in the entire history of cable television. Rupert Murdoch, who has admitted they were lies and said he regretted it, has a special obligation to stop Tucker Carlson from going on tonight now that he's seen how he has perverted and slimed the truth, and from letting him go on again and again and again. And he's going to come back tonight with another segment. Fox News should tell him not to. Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, tell Carlson not to run a second segment of lies. You know it's a lie.
So when Tucker Carlson lies, it's bad. But when Jimmy Kimmel lies, he can say what he wants because free speech. Got it.
Here, a comedian's 5-day suspension triggered a free speech crusade. The double standard is unmistakable.
In 2018, a dozen Democrat senators wrote the FCC and called on the agency to investigate Sinclair for a newsroom decision and to take action up to and including license revocation. No problem. The left had no problem whatsoever with Democrats pressuring the FCC to pressure Sinclair into stopping its programming choices. During the Biden years, Democrats at the FCC took the unprecedented step of not renewing dozens of routine Sinclair license renewals. They stopped them from getting their license, which means they cannot broadcast. Okay, no problem. Democrats, all these same people preaching free speech, loved it. They were totally in support. In 2023, the FCC determined it would be in the public interest to move forward with a petition that sought to revoke a local Fox broadcast TV station's license because of content that aired on Fox News, a cable channel, which the FCC does not regulate. They don't regulate social media. They don't regulate any cable channels. They only regulate broadcast. And they determined, FCC, in 2023 under Biden, it would be in the public interest to move forward with a petition seeking to revoke a local Fox broadcast TV station's license because of content on Fox News cable. In 2021, Democrats in Congress launched a campaign to pressure cable companies to drop Fox, to drop Newsmax, to drop OAN on the grounds that they were, quote, right-wing. That's Democrats in Congress trying to pressure cable companies to drop Fox, OAN, and Newsmax from their lineups. And it worked. Cable companies did drop some of them. 2 Democratic members of Congress sent letters to DirecTV and other providers questioning their carriage of channels that spread misinformation, including OAN. DirecTV dropped OAN and Newsmax in response. Democratic members of Congress sent letters to DirecTV urging them to drop OAN and Newsmax, and they did it. This is the same side now grasping its pearls about any Democratic interference in programming decisions. In 2021, Democratic lawmakers pressured the FCC to block the sale of a Spanish-language radio station in South Florida to what they viewed as a conservative buyer, arguing that doing so would matter to their odds in the 2022 midterms.
Breaking overnight, a suspect taken into custody. Officials saying they arrested 64-year-old Anabel Hernandez Santana at his home in Sacramento for allegedly shooting multiple bullets into KXTV's lobby. Now police are trying to understand why the shots were fired.
An armed vehicle fired 3 times into a building at Broadway and 5th Street.
It was around 1:30 in the afternoon on Friday when the chaos erupted. Shots fired into the ABC affiliate's building along a busy street just outside of downtown Sacramento.
I don't know motive, right? I don't know if this was targeted or if this was a random act.
You can see the bullet holes in these images, piercing through the front glass. Authorities say the alleged suspect was in a vehicle, seen firing and then speeding off before police arrived.
On September 22nd, just 5 days after suspending him, Disney announced Kimmel's return, attributing the decision to thoughtful conversation with the host. Jimmy Kimmel returned to his late-night show on September 23rd, drawing a huge audience eager to see how he would address the controversy that led to his suspension.
I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. I have many friends and family members on the other side who I love and remain close to, even though we don't agree on politics at all. I don't think the murderer who shot Charlie Kirk represents anyone. This was a sick person who believed violence was a solution, and it isn't. Ever. And also, selfishly, I am a person who gets a lot of threats. I get many ugly and scary threats against my life, my wife, my kids, my coworkers because of what I choose to say. And I know those threats don't come from the kind of people on the right who I know and love. So that's what I wanted to say on that subject. But I don't want to make this about me because, and I know this is what people say when they make things about them, but I really don't. This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this.
Kimmel also called out Donald Trump for, quote, not being able to take a joke.
This puts them at risk. The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. He was somehow...
Which left many conservatives confused and angry about Kimmel's response. The statement that conservatives were mad about wasn't the joke part. It was the part where Jimmy Kimmel had insinuated that the killer was MAGA, a verifiably false statement. And finally, to add insult to injury, Jimmy Kimmel urged conservatives to be forgiving, pointing to Erica Kirk as an example.
A moment over the weekend, a very beautiful moment. I don't know if you saw this on Sunday. Erica Kirk forgave the man who shot her husband. She forgave him. That is an example we should follow. If you believe in the teachings of Jesus as I do, there it was. That's it. A selfless act of grace, forgiveness from a grieving widow. It touched me deeply. And I hope it touches many. And if there's anything we should take from this tragedy to carry forward, I hope it can be that.
Yet he had not offered a straight-up apology himself. Instead, his remarks came across as an attempt to preserve his multi-million-dollar production, rather than taking real accountability for lying about Charlie Kirk's killer.
And now, Eliana, yesterday, we were subjected to a day full of leftist media like, Jesus is back. He's back. Thank God. Jimmy Kimmel went back on and gave the greatest monologue in human history, Eliana. Here's just a little taste in SOT 13.
He doesn't really want this to be about him. He has been thrust into this bigger and, frankly, more consequential role. He's trying to talk about free speech rights, not for late-night talk show hosts, but for all Americans. Lengthy and emotional monologue. This was a comeback in every sense of the word.
It's framed perfectly. It's not left-wing against right-wing. This is big government versus the people. This is a centralized state versus individual rights, especially if it's political speech, which is the most sacred, protected speech in the First Amendment.
Jimmy Kimmel broke his silence here last night with a lengthy and a heartfelt monologue.
Kimmel also delivering a searing defense of free speech.
We're glad to see Jimmy back. I'm glad to see Jimmy back on air. That's where we're going to begin.
It was a triumphant return for late-night host Jimmy Kimmel.
Last night's show was emotional. It was passionate. Ultimately, it was a tribute to free speech.
The news about Jimmy Kimmel, I think, is a pretty watershed moment. I think we all need to be talking about. We actually, and it's not just a media story. I know you agree with me on this. It's not just a media story. It's a democracy story. It's a freedom of speech story. It's so many things.
We're regularly making sure social media platforms are aware of the latest narratives. You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others for providing misinformation out there.
But what Brendan Carr basically did was empower the affiliates to make an independent decision, something they didn't feel empowered to do prior to Brendan being like, hey, there is this obligation to air programming in the public interest, and I'm the person who oversees that. And suddenly you had two affiliates saying, you know what, you're right, we are empowered to say no, goodbye, Jimmy. And they're holding the line even after they put him back on the air, and Brendan Carr has completely stood down on whatever threat he offered on Benny Johnson, so they did not need to do it to please him, but they're standing by the decision. But I don't know that they would have in the first place. My simple point is, we as conservatives are better off, or independent minds, however you describe yourself, we're better off now than we were a week ago. It is a good thing for America that Jimmy Kimmel was off the air for 5 nights and that the leftists felt one tiny dose of what we have been feeling for years. On the right, for years. How many of our people have been canceled? And we don't get canceled and put back on the air for 5 days. Trust me.
This is really scary. The First Amendment is over.